is up, everybody? Today I'm going to be walking you through how I made this mesh shirt with flare sleeves. It's got a slouchy and baggy type of feel to it, very flowy. It's very comfortable in 70 to 80 degree weather, so something in the summer or fall. The materials I'll be using today is a 5mm crochet hook, some stitch markers, and some snippers or scissors of some sort, darning needles, of course, to thread our things in later, and then a size 3 yarn. I will be using this brand, their Blue Gradient. It is 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. This project will take up about 800 to 900 yards, I believe, somewhere around there. I'm not exactly sure. And this took me about 4 days to make the shirt as well. But if you are using the pattern for this shirt that I wrote out, this video will help to explain the custom stitches in there that I made, called the square decrease and the square increase. These are just a specific set of stitches so that I can make my written pattern a bit more organized. I will also be using them in this video just to help shorten some shorthand terms a little bit. It'll be a little bit quicker. Don't worry if this makes no sense right now. This is completely fine because I will explain this thoroughly and walk you through this shortly after we start working on the sleeves. But for now, these are the abbreviations that I use for this project. The stitches that I use are chains, single crochets, treble crochets, fasten off, my custom square decrease, and my custom square increase. So the first thing we're actually going to start off is to make one of the panels. We will need 2 of these panels because they will be both the front and back of the project. So we'll need to make 2 of them. Of course, make sure you start with your slip stitch. Now, the number of chains that we do will create the width of our shirt. So you need to do whatever feels comfortable for you, as long as it can basically meet the sides of your body, wrap around the front and meet the side, and same on the back, of course. So whatever number of chains feels comfortable for you, but the thing that's very important though is that you must make sure this is divisible by 4. And the reason why is because these squares, the mesh squares that are actually in the design, are 4 stitches wide. So you just need to make sure that you'll always have a number of chains that is divisible by 4. And I will skip through this, so I'm not going to bother you with having to watch me count how to do all of this, but I normally do about 56 chains for mine, and that will give me 14 squares. So now I have completed 56 chains all the way across here. And now we're gonna start on row 1. Now row 1 is just single crochets all the way across, single crochet stitches. So of course, that the number that is divisible by 4 that you found, always make sure you do an extra 1 before we start doing our single crochets. And then we can just go in and make sure, I know that you might have felt confident about counting your chains going across, but do make sure as you go back, when you do your single crochet stitches, make sure you count that again, just to double, triple check. It is very important to make sure this is still divisible by 4, and that you didn't accidentally make your count off by 1 or something. Alright, and this is 55, and this is my 56th single crochet stitch in row 1, and now row 1 is complete. And like I said before, we have to make sure that the number of single crochet stitches we have is divisible by 4, because this is going to be very important for doing our row 2. And row 2 is what I like to call our square rows. This is what starts to create our mesh look. and each square is 4 stitches wide, which is why this must be divisible by 4. So to start our row 2 here, our square row, we're going to chain 3, and then turn our work, and then we're going to treble crochet into that stitch that our chains are coming out of. Do that treble crochet. So now we look like this. And then we chain 2, and then start doing another treble crochet, and we're going into the third one from the hook. So skip these 2 stitches here, skip this, skip that, go into the third one from the hook. This is now the edge of this square, and complete that treble crochet. And there we are. That is our first square. And don't worry if this looks a little lopsided or goofy, because that's going to be fixed as we come back all the way through into our next row. And now we're ready to make another square. Let me get this out of our way though. So I do another treble crochet into the stitch right next to it, so we're just doing another square. So our squares are basically treble crochet, chain 2, treble crochet into the third stitch from the hook. So here I chain 2, treble crochet into not this, not that, but the third one from the hook, and complete that treble crochet. And now we have 2 squares. Now, since I have 56 stitches going across from row 1, just divide that by 4 now, and that is going to tell us how many squares that this square row will have. So 56 divided by 4, I'm going to have about 14 squares after I'm done. I should have 14 squares actually. So I'm going to show you this one. That is now our third square. You just keep going all the way across like that. Now I'm gonna speed this up a little bit until I get towards the end of this row, and I'll show you, just in case, what it looks like to end a row like this, the number of squares I have, and starting off the next one. Alright, and now I'm towards the end here. I'm going to start this last square, do a treble crochet again. We do our chain 2, and treble crochet, and it's just going to be 1 at the end here. And there we go. Now we've got our first square row. This is row 2 that we've completed. And now let's double check. I said I should have 14 squares at the end of this one. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And it does end exactly where it should. And this is pretty much how the rest of the shirt is going to be. But I'm going to walk you through row 3 as well, because it does look a little bit different. We're not going into single crochet stitches, we're working above here now. So let me show you how to do that one. So just like usual, all of our rows start with chain 3, turn our work, so now we look like this. And like usual, chain 2, get ready for a treble crochet, and we're going to go into this stitch right above our previous treble crochet from this row. we're going to go right into here. That is how one square looks on that row. And now let's start doing a second one. And that's where we start that one. And then we chain 2. Start doing another treble crochet. Just like we did here, we're going to into this stitch right here. And just like normal, go into the same one, into one that's right next to that treble crochet. Do another treble crochet into it. There we go. And now chain 2. Then we do another treble crochet to finish this third square into this stitch here. And there we go. Got 3 squares in here. We will always have the same number of squares in each of our rows that we work towards in this direction. So I'll finish this row and meet you towards the end of this one again. And now I'm finally towards the end of this row. Do this treble crochet, and now I can do this last square here. Treble crochet into this stitch. Chain 2. And then do our last treble crochet. Alright, and that is the end of row 3, and we can triple check this again to make sure I have the correct number of squares. You'll notice that I've got my row 1 of single crochet stitches, row 2 of these 14 squares, and then row 3 of these 14 squares. And then you can do as many rows as comfortable for you, as many as you need, as long as this end and the other end that you're finished on, it will meet from about your hip area to your neckline. As long as that's comfortable, you can make as many rows as you want. And now I will meet you at the second to last row that you do. After you're done doing as many of these squares that you want to do, that is where I will meet you, and I will show you how to do our last row. Alright, now I have completed as many rows as I need to fit my torso. I have actually done all the way to row 22, so that means that I have 21 squares here. So this is where I started at the bottom, 14 squares across. I keep 14 squares across, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is correct. So now we're ready to finally, once this reaches your neckline, you're comfortable with where it's at on you, we can finally do our very, very last row, which is just single crochets across. And now it's going to be very similar to our row 1, since we have, or at least mine, is 14 squares. Multiply that by 4, I had 56. That was how many chains I initially did, and that's how many stitches were in my row 1. So that means now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and just do 56 single crochets across. And this is actually, I'm going to show you how I do it. So I go through, similarly, the one that my chain is coming out of, into the square hole, I do 2, and then these 2 stitches, regular stitches, I do 2. So these 4 that are right here, that's 1 square. Go into that second stitch, do the 2 into the square hole, and then I do 1 more into here. And now that basically covers That is 8 stitches, and that covers these 2 whole squares. Just do that all the way across, and then we can finally fasten off, and we are finished with one panel. And now I just need 4 more stitches on this last square. 1, 2, this is the second one in the square hole, and now this 4th last stitch right here. Now we have a full row of single crochets, finally closing off our panel, and we can fasten it off, snip this yarn. And there we go, we're finally done. Of course, just weave in your ends that you've got going on, especially if you needed to change colors somewhere through, but this is one whole panel. Mine is 14 by 21, like I've mentioned before. And now we just need to make 2 of these, and then just stitch mark them together where your neckline will be, where your arms and sleeve section will be, and then if you want, just where the rest of your sewing will be right there on their sides. And I will meet you when I do that. So these are my 2 panels that I've completed, and I have already went ahead and stitch marked the outer edges and everything for it. Make sure that once you stitch mark this, please make sure that you try this on, because these measurements that we're about to do is going to be very, very important for the rest of the shirt pretty much. So when you put it on, make sure you mark where your neckline is, of course. I like to have mine just a little bit bigger. So this is going to be my neckline here at the top from these red stitch markers. And now, also make sure you stitch mark the area right below your armpit. Not too close, but comfortable. Comfortable enough that you can slip this on and off. That's what also makes this very important to try on in the first place. And then this is where I put mine. Make sure that they're going to be whole squares. Don't put the stitch marker in like the middle of a square or something. Make sure it's actually on one of these edges here, not somewhere in the middle, you know, if that makes sense. And then, of course, down the edge, we're going to weave this or sew this as well. Mine, personally, you don't have to do this. You can sew yours all the way down to the bottom. I'm personally not going to. I'm going to actually leave these 2 squares free and only sew from this stitch marker down to this stitch marker. That is just a personal preference because I want mine to be a little looser. You do not need to do that though. Do not sew this just yet because we're actually going to do that after we make the sleeves. Now, before we move on to actually making the sleeves, we need to make sure that we do a calculation. So we've got this all stitch marked, and this stitch marker is going to be very important, the ones that are right by our armpits basically. So what we're gonna do is from either of these sides, I like to do it on this side just because. So start from a top corner and count down to your stitch marker. Mine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it's going to be entire squares. So mine is from here to here, 12 squares. Since this is going to be for the sleeve area, this is also 12. So we need to multiply this by 2, 24, and that is how many squares it tells me that my first square row of my sleeve will be. Now, of course, square rows aren't the very first thing we do. Like we do here, we do our single crochets, and we have to do your chains first. So I have to figure out how many chains I need to do. So like I said, I found this number is 12. You have to multiply that by 2 because the sleeve will attach to both sides here. So 24, and since every square takes up 4 stitches, we need to do 24 times 4, that's 96. That means I need to do 96 chains for both of my sleeves to start them off. It's long, it's very tedious, but make sure you go very slow and count this stuff properly because this will be very important for your sleeve later on. But once you do that, once you calculate that and you know the number that you want, we are ready to start on the sleeves. Since I know that I need to do 96 chains to start off my sleeve, I am going to do that in a minute. However, am I going to bore you with watching me do that? Heck no, because that's a lot. Especially because I want to make sure that I can be careful with my counting. But I do want to note some important things before I continue on and do this myself. So I just want to say, be very, very, very careful as you count this, because first off, 96 chains, that's a lot, right? That's, especially if you're, well, my favorite method to count was, of course, just do the chains that you gotta do, count to 10 chains, put a stitch marker, do 10 chains, put a stitch marker, do it by 10s, basically. Even if you don't have stitch markers, just find something that can be used as one. Bobby pins, earrings, safety pin, whatever works. Literally anything that you can do, anything that'll help you to count this, do that. Because you will need to make sure that this lines up with the sleeve. And if this ends up being off by a lot, this might be a little uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't believe it would be too uncomfortable, but if it's off by a lot, it might be. You don't want that to happen around the armpit area where it's going to be attached to the panel and stuff. So just make sure you go extremely slow and count. And even if you weren't sure if it was 10, just double, triple check. Just count again, just to make sure. And now this is my 96th stitch. Yep, my 96th. And now I am ready to do my single crochet stitches. And yeah, this is just like the sleeve. Our row 1 will just be single crochet stitches all the way across. Now, after doing your number that is divisible by 4, mine is 96, always make sure you do your extra one more chain before we go on to our single crochet stitches. And what I like to do in my row 1 as I go back, similar to what I did with my sleeve, every 10 put a stitch marker just to triple check again. Just make so sure that you have the correct number that you need, because this could be really annoying if it's off, especially if it's off by 1. You don't want to have to like redo everything. That's just really annoying. But yeah, I'm going to speed up through this process once again, and then I will show you how to do row 2. Five and 6. And now let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 96. So yeah, now I've got 96 here, and now we are ready to start on our row 2, which is back to our square rows that we were doing before. So honestly, row 2 is super easy. Let me just weave this in a little bit. As usual, we start with our chain 3, if I can do a chain 3, and turn our work, do a treble crochet into that chain that we're coming out of. And then of course, chain 2, and then pull 2 here, skip 2 stitches, and go into the third one from the hook, and do our treble crochet. And then do another treble crochet into this next stitch right here. So this row is exactly like the panel is. We're just doing a regular square row straight across. And I will speed up this process since it's super easy. It's exactly like the panel. It's the exact same thing. It's just a little bit longer. And since, like I mentioned before, I've got 96 chains, or I started with 96 chains rather. So that means by the time I finish the square row, I will have 24 squares, which is 2 times that number that I counted on my panel that I needed, which was 12. And yeah, I'm just gonna do the same thing here straight across. Alright, and now I'm ready to do my last treble crochet in row 2, our square row. Now let me triple check, just of course I just like to make sure every step of the way that I've got the number that I need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we do correctly have 24 squares. And now we are ready to move on to row 3. This is where I'm going to now be introducing the square decrease stitch. But just like normal, start our row with chain 3 and treble crochet into the stitch that our chains are coming out of. Do 2 chains. I'm going to do 2 treble crochets. Because what we're going to do here is basically make sure I have 3 sets of treble crochet posts in this row before doing a decrease. So do 2 more chains. Now we're going to do 2 more treble crochets before doing the decrease, and I will explain to you a bit more what I was just now trying to say. So this last treble crochet. So this is what I mean when I say the treble crochet posts. I'm just talking about these little things right here going on. So we've got 1, 2, 3 sets, or just 3 posts going on of the treble crochets. I like to do this at every the beginning of every row, pretty much anywhere in the row before I do a decrease or a square increase or square decrease. So now we're ready to actually move on to our square decrease. Always make sure that you've got 2 chains before doing a square decrease. And now we're ready to move on and actually start doing it. So what we're gonna do, so this area is what we would usually go into, right? This is kind of what I like to refer to as our usual treble crochet area, something like that. The stitches we normally go into with our treble crochet. But what we're going to do is skip this spot. So we're gonna skip our usual treble crochet area and instead go into the square space that is right after it. Not this square space, this square space. So get ready to do your treble crochet. Don't go into here, don't go into here. Instead, go into the square hole that's right after. And then we're going to do 2 treble crochets into this square hole. We do 2 chains. And now, similarly, skip this usual treble crochet area. We're not going into the square hole this time. We're actually going into our next usual treble crochet area. So get ready to pull treble crochet. Don't go into these, don't go into this, don't go into that. Instead, we're going into the next usual treble crochet area, and we do our 2 treble crochets. And let me show you why this works as well. So we see that our treble crochets match here, the posts match up here. So our row 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. And our row 3 rather, now has 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So we can see how this does correctly decrease the number of squares that we've got going on in our next row. Now what I like to do, this is basically our first set of treble crochet posts. So now I just need to do chain 2 and make 2 more of these posts. Do 2 treble crochet, 2 chain, do that 2 more times to make our 3 sets of treble crochet posts before we move on to our next square decrease once again. Now we're doing our second treble crochet. And like I said, make sure you do your chain. Now we are ready to do another square decrease. So once again, I'll go slow. So skip our usual treble crochet area. Instead, we're going into this square space that is after it. So don't go into here, instead go into here. And we will do 2 treble crochets. Now we'll do 2 chains. Again, skip our usual treble crochet area here. Now we were actually going to our next one that's right after. So don't go into these, instead go into here. And there we go, we have finished our square decrease. You can see I've got 2 of them going on, and you will notice that our sleeve is starting to curve in a little bit since we're decreasing. And now make sure we do 2 more chains. And once again, let me actually explain to you a little bit my process when I was writing this pattern. So basically what's going on here is we're gonna have the 3 posts, decrease, 3 posts, and then our decrease. And we're gonna have similarly here our 3 posts, decrease, 3 posts, and a decrease. So what we're going to do after we've done our 2 chains, we're going to do 2 chains, or 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, do that 4 times. So let's start my first one. So 2 treble crochet, 2 chain. That was my first time, so I need to do it 3 more. And that was 2. Two treble crochets again. I'm gonna speed this up. And this is 3. And now this is the 4th time that I'm doing 2 treble crochets, 2 chains. And after doing 2 treble crochets, 2 chains 4 times, we are ready for another decrease. So like before, don't treble crochet into here. We're going to do 2 treble crochets into here instead. So let's get that ready. Go into this square hole. That's after our usual treble crochet area. I'm gonna make sure to do 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, and then skip our usual treble crochet spot, go into the next one. Pull these. For a second treble crochet here. And then after that, make sure you chain 2. And then we're gonna do 2 chains, 2 treble crochets twice. Or 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, in that order, actually. So it's 2 treble crochet, 2 chains, that's once. And this is twice. The reason I did that is because you can see I'm doing 3 posts again before I decrease. The center wasn't like that because that was just this center. That's just how it is. I'm only trying to decrease 4 squares from this row. So the center was going to be a little bit different. But now I'm doing 3 posts because we did our decrease here. 3 posts. Now we do another decrease. Don't go into this treble crochet area, but go into the square hole that's after. Do 2 treble crochets, your 2 chains. Again, skip our usual crochet area, but now go into our next treble crochet area. Now I can just do 2 chains, 2 treble crochets here, and then do 2 more chains, and then 1 treble crochet. And as you can see, I have my 3 posts at the end here, just like I had it in the beginning over here. So since our first square row had 24 squares, now at the end of row 3, I should have 20 squares. So let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And it does end in the way that it should. Now we can move on to row 4, which is very, very similar to the row we just did actually. Just chain 3, turn our work, treble crochet into the stitch that our chains come out of. Just like normal, we always start these rows the same. 2 treble crochets. And then, just like before, we're gonna make sure we do 3 posts before we do our decrease. So this is 1, this always counts as 1, then we did our chain 2. Now we're ready to do 2 treble crochets. This will make up our second post little area of the treble crochets, treble crochet stitches. 2 more chains, and then do 2 more treble crochets, crochet stitches. And then do 2 more chains. And now you can see, just like the previous row, I have 3 posts, and now I'm ready to do my decrease. And do this hole. We do 2 treble crochets. Two chains, skip our usual area, go to the next, and do 2 treble crochet stitches. Two chains. That was our first decrease. Now let's go ahead and make these 3 posts. So this is our second post here. 2 chains. And we can go ahead and make our third post of the 2 treble crochet stitches. And then I chain 2, and we are ready to do another square decrease. Our second one on this side. Two chains, 2 treble crochets into this next area. Do 2 chains. Now you can see here that I've got I've already done a decrease here, and now my decrease here. And now what we're going to do, we are now at the center. So we did our second decrease, and then we do our 2 chains, And now we're actually just gonna jump right into our next decrease. So skip this hole, skip our usual crochet area, and go into this hole. Do 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, skip this usual area, go into the next, and do 2 treble crochet stitches. Two more chains, and then I'm gonna make sure that we have 3 posts before doing another decrease. For our 3 posts, so this is my second, 2 chains, I'm making my 3rd post. Now do 2 chains. You can see I've got my 3 posts here. Now we're ready to do our last square decrease in this row. Two chains. Skip this, go to the next. Now we can just finally finish off this row like normal. It's going to have 3 posts at the edge, just like the beginning of our row did. Now working on this last treble crochet. This is the end of row 4. And now, since my previous row had 20 squares and I did 4 square decreases, I should now have 16 squares. And let's triple check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And it does end where it should. Now I'm going to move on to row 5. In row 5, I'm going to decrease to 12 squares. Now, honestly, let me actually pause here for a second. You can see how this is having more of a curve. It's starting to actually have the circular shape of the sleeve. And this first edge here, just like our panel, this is actually going to be the part that connects to our panel, since it's our first row. And from this point on, it actually might be a little bit easier if you start using a stitch marker to hold the sleeve together, because at this point, let me actually do that real quick, and I will explain to you why this actually will help, because you will need to know your measurements, or at least if this is for you or someone else that you're making it for, you just gotta make sure that it's going to fit you correctly. So I like to just put some stitch markers on, and especially as I work my way up the sleeve. So now this is the edge, I'm gonna be working in this direction. At this point right now would probably be the best time to try on the sleeve real quick. There's not going to be much to it, of course. Just pull this up to the area where it's going to connect on your panels. Basically, when you tried on your panels and you saw where that ended on your shoulder, just line this up to that area pretty much and see how this fits. Because the reason I'm going in my row 5 to decrease down to 12 squares is because I now want this measurement. After row 5, I want this measurement to comfortably fit around my arm. I want my shirt to have a little bit of slack and be a little flowy and stuff. So it's gonna sag a little bit more and have a little bit of extra space around my arm. However, if you already prefer where this is at, or you don't have to decrease 4 squares, you can just decrease 2 squares down, but whatever is comfortable for your arm. Row 5, the measurement, however we decrease, or if you don't decrease any squares, row 5, at the end of row 5, when we're finished with that, we want that to comfortably fit around our bicep pretty much. That edge of that row will start being around our bicep. Now I'm ready to move on to row 5, and I'm going to be decreasing 2 squares from this row. As per usual, just make sure we do chain 3, turn our work, 2 treble crochet into the stitch our chains come out of. Now why I say row 5 is going to be a little bit different is because I'm not actually doing the 3 sets of treble crochet posts here anymore. This time I'm just doing my chain 3, treble crochet, chain 2, and then I do 2 treble crochet into here. Do 2. And then do 2 chains. And now I'm going to do a square decrease. I do not have 3 posts like I've been doing. My row 5 is different. So after doing my 2 chains, I'm ready for my first square decrease. Do 2 chains into here, or 2 treble crochets into here. 2 chains. Skip our usual treble crochet area, go into our next. And this is our first square decrease. And again, this is going to be different here. All I'm going to do is 2 chains and then do my second square decrease. Just go directly into the square hole after the 2 chains. Do 2 treble crochet stitches, 2 chains, skip our usual spot here, go into the next. And that is our second square decrease. And now, once again, just gonna do 2 chains and then go right into my third square decrease. Two treble crochet stitches here. Make sure we do 2 chains. Skip our usual spot, go into the next. And that finished our third square decrease. Now after doing 2 chains, we're just going to go right into our last square decrease. Do a square hole here, do a treble crochet stitch, our second treble crochet stitch, do 2 chains, skip our usual spot, go into the next one. And then from here on, the row is just gonna be ended like normal. So I do 2 chains, 2 treble crochets, do that twice. So that was once. We do 2 chain, 2 treble crochet a second time. And then just 2 chains and our 1 treble crochet to end this row. If this will cooperate, since I'm kind of running out of yarn here. All right, this is still that last treble crochet. That ends row 5. And now let me count how many squares I've got here. I should have 12 since my previous had 16 and I did 4 square decreases. So I've got 1, 2, sorry, this is going to be a little messy to count because of my stitch markers here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I do correctly have 12. Now what I'm gonna do, since this comfortably fits around my arm, what I'm just going to do now, row 6 all the way up to row 13, I'm going to keep 12 squares. So I'm basically moving on to row 6. I'm just gonna do a normal square row. I'm not gonna do any decreases. I'm not gonna introduce the square increase at all. Just gonna do like usual, 3 chains, 2 treble crochet into the stitch we come out of. And this is starting row 6. This is just straight across. And the reason that I am doing this all the way to row 13 is because however many rows I need to reach my elbow, I normally do just a little bit before my elbow, honestly, but anywhere around your elbow is where you can stop, and then we're going to start doing these square increases to start doing that flare. So the reason that I keep the 12 squares here is because I want this to actually just fit comfortably along my bicep, and then I do as many rows as I need to reach up to my elbow. For me, this is row 13, and then I'm going to start doing the increases, and I will meet you there. I am now at the point where I've made enough rows that I need to make sure that this reaches all the way to my elbow, just around my elbow. So that means I have finished row 13, if you are following along with me with the pattern that I have made. And as you can see, I've kept stitch marking as I went, and this is basically how it's going to be. This will be all the way to my shoulder over here, and you can see this fits my bicep pretty comfortably. It's going to be relatively loose. And now we can finally start doing some increases here. So I am moving on now to row 14. So I still have 12 squares in my row 13. And instead of increasing by 4, I'm just going to be increasing 2 squares in my next row. So since this row 13 has 12 squares, my row 14 that I'm going to start should have 14 squares. So let me show you how to do an increase. Make sure that you always have your chain 3 and then treble crochet stitch into the one that our chains come out of. Do 2 chains, 2 treble crochet, just like normal, my other rows when I was increasing where I had 3 of those treble crochet posts, I'm doing the exact same thing here. Just building up to make sure that I've got these 3 sets of posts made by these treble crochet stitches before I do my square increase. Just like our square decrease, make sure you have chain 2 before we do it. Now what we're gonna do is get ready, pull 2 to do a treble crochet. Instead of going into this usual treble crochet area, what we're gonna do is go into our closest square hole right here. So instead of going into here, we're actually just gonna go into here and do 2 treble crochet stitches. Then we're gonna do 2 chains. And then right into our next square hole, directly after this one, we're going into the next one. 2 treble crochet stitches into here. Then we do 2 chains. And then this treble crochet stitch area that we normally go into, that's closest to here, we're just gonna do 2 treble crochet stitches right into there. And we have returned back to the usual way that we do our stitches pretty much. And let me show you how this works. So since these are matched up here, our previous row has 1, 2, 3, 4. And now our next row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. So you can see how this does correctly increase 1 right here. Now what I'm gonna do is do our 3 posts again. So make sure you do 2 chains. And then what we're gonna do is do 2 treble crochets. So we're doing 2 chain, 2 treble crochets 4 times. So that was once. Let's do it a second time. That was our second. Let's do this again. Now let's do that one more time. 2 chain, 2 treble crochet stitches. Then just make sure you do 2 chains, and we're going to do another square increase, our last square increase in this row. So once again, pull 2 here. Instead of going into our usual treble crochet area right here, we're going into the square hole. So don't go here, instead go into this square hole right before it and do 2 treble crochet stitches. Now do 2 chains, and then again we just went into this square hole. Now we're gonna jump into this next square hole. So pull our 2, we're gonna go into here, do our treble crochet stitch, do a second one, and then and then do 2 chains, and then we can return right back here to our usual treble crochet spot. Do 2 chains, 2 treble crochet in our usual spot, two chains, and then treble crochet into the usual spot. And then that ends our row 14. Now let's count the number of squares I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and it does end where it should. So yes, this does correctly increase. And now going into this next row, actually, row 15, I'm actually just gonna do a normal row straight across. So chain 3, turn our work, 2 treble crochet. I'm just gonna go do a usual square row, no increases, no decreases. I'm going to keep the 14 squares that I already have. And I am completing this last treble crochet stitch of my row 15. I kept the 14 squares that I had across, that I had increased to. And since I'm going to be moving on to row 16 now, chain 3, turn our work, 2 treble crochet into the one our chains come out of. Now this row I'm going to increase 2 again. So I should have 16 after doing this row. So we make sure we have our 3 treble crochet stitches, the posts that are made by them, the 3 sets actually. And then chain 2, and do 2 more treble crochet stitches here. And I will have those 3 sets of posts after doing this. And of course we want to make sure we have our 2 chains before doing an increase again. And now I can move on to my square increase. And like before, don't go into our usual treble crochet stitch area. We actually go into the square hole that's just before it. And we will do 2 treble crochet stitches into here. Do 2 chains. This, we were just in this square hole. Now we move on to this one and do 2 treble crochet stitches into that. And then we do 2 chains. And then we can finally return back into our usual treble crochet area that's right next to the square hole we were just in. Do a treble crochet stitch, do a second one. Now finish our row like normal until we get to the end, because we want to do the another decrease towards the end. So what I'm gonna do is 2 chains, 2 treble crochet, do that 6 times. And then we can do 2 more chains before we go on to our increase again. Pull 2. Don't go into our usual treble crochet area. We go into the square right before it. Do a treble crochet stitch. Do a second one. 2 chains. Don't go into this area. We were just in this square hole, but now we're going to go into the next square hole. Do a treble crochet stitch. Do a second one. 2 chains, and then we can finish off this row like normal as we go into our usual treble crochet area, since we've returned to this spot now. And 2 chains, 2 treble crochet. Two chains, and then our last treble crochet in this row. And this completes row 16. And since I previously had 14 squares and I did 2 square increases, I should now have 16 squares. So let's count that really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this does work. And let me actually put another stitch marker on here real quick, and I'll show you how this is actually starting to flare out a little bit more. So let's do this on this previous row. Move this over. So this was our beginning here. I'm working my way in this direction. You can see this part is going to fit on my bicep. And since we're staying even with the number of squares and the way that we do our stitches, this should always be symmetrical for the most part when it lays down and stuff like that. And you can see how just right here it's starting to flare out just a tiny little bit here now. And moving on to row 17, I am once again going to just do a regular square row after a chain 3, turn my work, just the usual way that we start our rows off. So I just finished row 16. I'm now starting row 17. I'm keeping the 16 squares that I increased to. And after I finish this row 17 with 16 squares, I'm just gonna do another regular square row. So my row 18 will also be 16 square rows. So I'm gonna skip ahead to that part, and after I finish row 18, and then we can start on row 19 together. I am now at the point where I have finished my row 18 with 16 squares across. Now I'm ready to start on my row 19. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna increase to 18 squares once again, but this is gonna be the last time that I show you how I do my square increases, because we only need to do it a few more times from here, or depending on how you wanna do your sleeve and whatnot. But as always, we'll just make sure that we create this set of 3 treble crochet posts before we do our increase. So now I'm doing my 2 treble crochets here. This will be the 3rd set of posts. And there we go. You can see I've got my 3 here. Now I'm ready, after I do 2 chains, to do my increase. And let me show you how to do an increase one more time. So you pull 2. Instead of going into our usual treble crochet area, we go into this square hole instead. So don't go into here. Instead, we treble crochet into this square hole. So we look like this now. Do our 2nd treble crochet into it. Now we're here. Do 2 chains. Again, don't go into this usual treble crochet area. Don't go into here. We're going into this square hole, the next one now. Do a treble crochet stitch. Do a 2nd one. Do 2 chains. And we can finally return back to our usual treble crochet area. So pull 2, go in to that stitch there. Do our 2nd one. Now the rest of this row, we're just going to do 2 chains, 2 treble crochets 8 times before we do our next increase. And then, after doing that 8 times, you can do 2 chains, move on to my next increase. So do two treble crochet into the square hole right next to what I'm already working in. Do a 2nd one here. 2 chains, go into the next square hole right over here. And then 2 chains. Then we can return into our usual crochet spot right here. Do a treble crochet stitch into there. Another treble crochet stitch. then we can finish off this row like normal. 2 chains, 2 treble crochet stitches, and we do 2 more chains, 1 more treble crochet stitch into the last one over here. Now I've increased to 18 squares. Let's triple check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I have finally completed row 19 with 18 squares. What I'm gonna do after this one now is do 3 more rows, which keeps 18 squares. Now you might have picked up on the pattern now. So what I did after, so row 14, I had increased to 14 squares. Row 15, I kept the 14 squares. Row 16, I increased to 16. I did 2 more rows where I kept the 16. Row 19, I increased to 18. And now I'm gonna do 3 more rows where I keep the 18. I'm sure you can assume after that, I'm gonna do, in my row 23, increase to 20 squares. And then after that, the next 4 rows, I will keep the 20 squares. And then after that one, I'm going to, once again, increase to 22. But what's different there is I'm only going to do 2 rows of the 22 squares. So let me repeat after that. I'm just going to explain to you exactly the rows that I did. So let's go back through, let me explain what I did here on the sleeve so far. So we've got our row 1 of single crochet, row 2 of 24 squares, row 3 of 20 squares, row 4 of 16 squares, and then I got row 5, which is 12 squares, and then I kept the 12 squares all the way up until my elbow, which was all the way up to row 13 for me. So if you're following along with my pattern, that I was on row 13, and then row 14, increase to 14, row 15, keep the 14 squares, row 16, increase to 16, row 17 and 18, keep the 16, row 19, increase to 18, rows 20, 21, and 22, we're going to keep the 18, row 23, increase to the 20, row 24, 25, 26, 27, keep the 20, row 28, increase to 22, row 29 and 30, keep the 22. And once I have completed my row 30, I will meet you back there and show you what I do right after that. Once I've gotten to the point that I'm ready to start finishing off my sleeve, I just want to do 1 more square row and then my single crochet row and then fasten it off. So I just finished row 30 and that has 22 squares for mine if you were following along with my pattern. And now I'm going to start on row 31 and I'm going to do 4 square decreases. So I'm going to go from 22 squares down to 18. And just like usual, our rows always start off the same. And this row, similarly, just like whenever we do a square increase or square decrease anywhere else on the sleeve, I want to make sure that I have these 3 sets of posts made by the treble crochet stitches. So let's make my 3rd one right here. And once I do my 2 more chains, I'm ready to do another square decrease. And let me walk you through it slowly again, just in case you forgot, because I know it's been doing a lot of square increases instead of decreases. So back to the decrease. We skip the usual treble crochet stitch area that we would typically go into and go into the square. So don't go into here, instead go into the square hole and do our treble crochet. Do a 2nd treble crochet stitch, 2 chains, and again skip our usual treble crochet spot right here, and then we're going to do, so don't go into here, go into here. I'm going to do a treble crochet stitch into that, and we have returned back into doing the square row the way we typically would. And now I'm going to do 2 chain, 2 treble crochet. So this is my second set of posts again. Two chains, 2 treble crochet. And then I do 2 more chains, and then get ready to do another decrease. So don't go into here, we go into the second square hole, or the one that's after that one. Do 2 chains, skip this usual crochet, this usual treble crochet area, and go into the next. Now we've returned here, and at this point we are in the center. We are now in the center of our sleeve. Turn this a little bit. So now, after doing that second square decrease, what I want to do is 2 chains, 2 treble crochets, do that 2 times. So 2 chains, 2 treble crochets. This is the first set of that. Chain, this is the second set. Basically what I did here is just make sure that there's these 3 posts once again, and then of course make sure we have 2 chains. Then we're going to do our third square decrease. Let's go ahead and do that. And after the 2 chains, we skip this area, go into the next one. So this row is just a lot easier because you can just make sure, okay, 3 posts, do my decrease, 3 posts, decrease, 3 posts, decrease, 3 posts, decrease. It's pretty much easy on this one. So right now, working on that third set of posts. And now that we've done that, of course, make sure you chain 2. And let's do another decrease, our last one. Go into this second square hole, the one that's right after our usual treble crochet area. Make sure you do 2. 2 chains. Don't go into here, but go into here instead. And then we can just finish off the sleeve like we normally would, and it'll end up giving us the 3 sets of posts that I normally have at the end of it. As you can see here, I just did 2 treble crochet there, I did the 2 chains. Now this is my second set of the treble crochet stitches. Two chains. And then once I do 1 more treble crochet, I can finish row 31. And this is our last square row, and let me just triple check to make sure that I do actually have 18 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So this does work, yeah. This is the end, and now I'm finally ready to just do all of my single crochet stitches all the way across. Now, of course, take the number of squares that you ended with, multiply that by 4. I have 18 squares, multiply that by 4. I need to do 72. That is how many single crochet stitches I need to do. So make sure you chain 1, turn your work, just like we did on the panel. Make sure you go into this stitch right here that the chain comes out of. You do 2 in the square hole here. Then you do 1 into here. And then you just continue on the rest of the way. And I'm finally at the last 4 here. And then once we complete this last stitch, we can finally just fasten off and snip our yarn off. And yeah, we are finally finished with the sleeve now. Just make sure that you do stitch mark. When you stitch mark, just make sure that the squares are lined up with each other. You'll have to count them probably if you weren't already doing that as you were crocheting the rows. But yeah, just do that just to make sure that they're lined up before you sew and weave in all your ends together, because you don't want this to be all crooked and stuff when you sew it and close it up. But yeah, you just need to make 2 more of these, or 1 more of these, so you have 2, and then we can finally start assembling that to the shirt. Once I have completed 2 panels and 2 sleeves, I'm now going to start laying these out and align them, place them where I want. And like I mentioned before, when you sew the sleeve together, make sure that you can still see the seam. Make sure that the sleeve is still inside out, basically. I'm gonna line that up there. And also, make sure that the seam is right here, lined up on the armpit. And now what I'm gonna do is stitch mark the bottom portion of the shirt. I'm gonna stitch mark the sleeves to the shirt and also mark the neckline. So now I have stitch marked the sleeves to the panels and assembled the whole shirt with just the stitch markers pretty much. So make sure that you stitch mark your neckline, make sure you try this on, and make sure that your head can fit through, not just your neck. I also want to mention the fact that previously in the past, we counted from this top corner down here. Mine was 12 squares, and that was just so I can be able to put this panel on with my arm can fit through comfortably, so I can put the shirt on and off. So I had 12 squares going down. And since my sleeve started off with 24 squares and it's symmetrical all the way through, and just make sure it's folded like this, then I should be able to just count from this bottom seam. Since this bottom seam is going to be in the armpit by our bottom stitch marker, we just count 12 up in that direction, and we can stitch mark it to the corner up here. And we can do the same thing on this sleeve as well. And now we are ready to finally start sewing everything together. What I like to do is I actually like to start from this bottom corner. I work my way up, go around this first part of the sleeve, go up to the neckline, work back, and then I work around this back part of the sleeve and all the way back to the bottom. And I do that on both sides as well. Now you don't have to sew all the way down to this bottom corner. You can if you want, that would be just like a regular shirt. But if you want, you can leave like 1 or 2 squares free, so it'll have like that cute little triangle design on the side if you want. So yeah, the important things to note, just make sure that your sleeves are still considered inside out right now when you stitch mark it to your panels. Make sure that the seams of your sleeve are on the bottom and line up to the stitch marker right here that's in the middle of your shirt that we counted for the sleeve right here. And then on your sleeve, count up the 12 squares or however many matches to this number on your panel up to the top corner. And then of course, make sure you stitch mark your neckline as well, and make sure you try this on and that it fits. And then you're fully ready to start sewing it together. So I'm not going to bother you with a time lapse of me sewing the shirt together because it's going to be a little bit redundant. But I do just want to mention again that I do start from the bottom corner, work my way up towards the armpit, go around the sleeve and up to the neckline, and then I work my way back down around the other side of the sleeve and all the way back towards the bottom, and then I fasten off where I had started. And then I just do that on the other side for my second sleeve. And then once you're done sewing everything together right there, then this shirt is now considered inside out. And then you can just flip it right side out and your shirt is now done and ready to wear. It's a very comfortable and flowy kind of shirt to wear in the summer and fall. So have fun!